Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow here on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and the In Pit Lane Facebook page. Hope you enjoyed our program tonight from David Bellinger from the Victorian Historic Racing Register. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, we're having a look at In Pit Lane on channel 31, or as I said on the YouTube channel. So keeping our fingers crossed, really keeping our fingers crossed that we're actually going to get some racing in a few weeks' time out at Sandown. And as David said tonight, I mean, despite all of the problems, over 200 cars entered already. Obviously well down on the usual sort of close to 400 that we have there regularly. But the exciting news was, and once again, let's keep our fingers crossed. But 14 Formula 5000s entered for that event already, and entries are still open. So if you're watching, if you happen to have an historic car anywhere in Australia, and you want to come down, what David said tonight was interesting. That they're guaranteeing that should you not be able to come for reasons of border closures or anything like that, or for any health reasons, that they're guaranteeing that all entry fees will be refunded under those circumstances. So you got nothing to lose if you want to come down. If the car's ready, and if you're itching to get back behind the wheel and get onto one of Australia's most famous race circuits, the Sandown Historic, happening on the first weekend of November, straight after the Melbourne Cup weekend. They're having 10,000 people turning up to the Melbourne Cup, but apparently we're not allowed to have anybody watching at Sandown. I don't know how that works, but anyway, apparently four hooves good, four wheels bad. But anyway, let's find out. So welcome to everybody. The group are back in, the band are back in action. We've got, or most of them anyway. We've got Stuart, Chris, we've got Richard, Peter, and Doc, of course. And we'll get the show underway in a moment. Well, first of all, we'll get the housekeeping out of the way. We'll say hello to some of our regulars. We've got to say hello to Russell. Yes, Russell. I hope everyone's safe and well. Good day. Good over to Russell. Box is back again. Yes, hello to anybody new to the program. Please join in. Yes, definitely. If you're watching for the first time, live on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook page, please join in. Leave a comment, and we'll pop it up, and we'll talk about what you're saying. Jeff is here, saying good evening. We've got Paul is with us again. Some decent thunderstorms happening in the north and west. Okay.
Resident weatherman, it's PVD A64. You've just got the Jane Bunn gig.
yes. So that's it. And now it's weather with Paul Vanderacker.
It's Knackers. Yep. Thanks, Knackers.
So Mad Cow Mark is back again, saying evening everybody. So g'day Mark, how are you? Nice to see you once again, and also to Andrew. Yes, yeah. Andrew saying that I want to get back to Sandown. Plenty of space for spectators, especially when even if they just opened up Red Hill and let you park your car on there. I mean, that's a great spot to watch from. Just let everybody in there and just put out some bins or something.
But see, that's
the whole thing.
There's a problem with that though, Brett. People park their car on the hill, they get out of their car and they start leaning on each other's car and within 1.5 meters of each other, and they don't follow the rules. That's the problem with what happens there. So, look, I totally agree with it. We need to do it, but I think that's why they're doing it with the horse racing, is because they can actually, everyone will COVID sign in, everyone will have all their double jabs, everyone will have all the procedures will all be followed properly and consistently like that. You go to a race meeting and the 99% of it will happen. Otherwise, they won't get through the gates because they'll have security and COVID officers everywhere. You go to a motorsport event and people will just put the rules to one side and just do what they want to do to a certain extent. So I think
I'm not sure about that. I think if because obviously it's double jab is required as well. So it's going to be the same thing. So, and there's a grandstand there if they want to space it out and have people spaced out in the grandstand, they can certainly do that. But anyway, I think part of it is also. I think part of it, as David was saying, both in the program but particularly after the show, is just the added stress on the club in terms of having to check all those people and to go through all that procedure. So I think that's another reason why what they want to do is they just want to make sure that cars get on the track and that people can that members VHRR members and others can get out there and race their cars, and unfortunately that means that people aren't going to see them. But as I said on the program tonight, we will certainly try and be out there. Certainly I'll be out there with a camera if they'll let me in, and they said they will. So you will see some action from Sandown. And I certainly did flag it with them, the possibility of doing something live from there as well. But we'll have to see about that.
That's the question, anyway, Brett. Can these governing bodies guarantee that they will follow all the regulations so that they can allow the spectators in safely? That's what it comes down to. And as you said, if it's just a small club or a governing body that hasn't got the resources or hasn't got the funds to sponsor or guarantee this, or they can't let the spectators in. So, and you can't blame the club or the affiliation or whoever it may be that's in control of it, or maybe the licensee or the contractor, because they're following the rules that everyone has to abide by in society. And well, the government and the health officers making up all the rules at the moment. So there's no use whinging and carrying on like a pork chop.
Well, I think that's it. But I mean, we understand why. I mean, this thing is obviously still out and about. And speaking of which, our very own Chris Ritchie, has the dreaded lurgy at the moment. Chris, how are you? How are you holding up at the moment? And also, how's the family? How's Faye and everybody else?
Well, Faye's been in hospital with it.
Oh dear.
So we spent the last few days in quarantine, and still am in quarantine. So you can probably tell by my voice that it's not as pristine and clear as it usually is.
So you'll have to go for a 13th day test, will you, Chris?
Yes.
So how many days is it now? And I mean, is it improving any at your stage? Is Faye out of? Is she still in hospital? Is she?
No, Faye's home now, resting. And this is day 7.
Right, so you've still got another
we're
week,
about halfway through
week to go. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, well, hopefully pull out of you both pull out of it and all that. And once again, it was just it was just someone a member of the family coming back in and saying hello, and you pick it up, So yes, it's no good at all. I mean, let's face it. I mean, but both of you have been fully jabbed, weren't you? You had.
Yes, we were. Yes.
Yeah, so that's obviously helped mitigate things a little bit, but. Yeah, it's obviously, it's still serious. It's still like, we can't, a lot of people are trying to pretend that it's all gone away now, but no, that's not the case. You wanted to say to Brock Cameron, Brock, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Virtual R is back with us again, so thanks to you again, Rob, for getting there. Yeah, but anyway, let's move on from matters pandemic, and let's get on to matters motorsport.
Can I actually add one point in there?
Yeah, you may.
Just seeing what Paul's next comment is.
Pointing the fork out.
Yeah, but frankly, if the horse racing wants to stand up and be the test case, fine, because that way motorsport doesn't get the negative publicity when it becomes a super spreader.
It's disappeared.
If the horse racing becomes a super spreader, it's not our problem. We don't worry about it.
Well, just following on from your point,
I'll just point out. Go ahead, just 1 second. We've had some technical problems. Yeah, well, so I'm not sure what you saw there, but we just lost everything at this end.
You're still going, Brett, from here. So what you were saying, Warrnambool had their 300 test case COVID double jab compliance meeting today down there at Warrnambool, and it went pretty smoothly. So the Melbourne Racing Club, who is obviously has contacts down there and friendly and good mates with them down there, are going to use all the data and resources and ask, and they give them all the feedback, etc., like that, to see how it went.
I think the comment from Jeff McWigan, who was commenting on the bottom here, is just saying, please, as someone who is medically trained, please, people, get the vax. So I think that's let's
absolutely.
leave it there. Let's leave it.
I went and signed up for it locally, and the one problem is the delay, 30 days wait time.
That's
literally. I booked in at the end of September, and the first one I could have locally was the end of October.
It's different in different areas. Some places you can walk straight into. Like
Yeah,
I've got
I just walked straight in.
Oh, I would love to be able to walk straight in because I want it done so I can go to Phillip Island at the end of November.
I've been working at a shopping centre over there in the Keysborough South area, and the chemist next door has been doing our staff on a walk-in basis any day of the week, any time.
Yeah, same as the one up, the chemist up here. There's 3 chemists in.
And they literally walk it. You could walk in like someone at work says, "I haven't got it." Well, you want to go and get it? And they went, "Yeah, we'll go. I get lunch break," and they've gone on lunch break, got it, and come back. So like just walk in. Some places.
That'd be amazing if it was here.
Yeah, no, I'd be checking. You should get it way
Hunt around.
That. Yeah, that's it. As much.
Maybe they're walking in and getting the AstraZeneca instead of the other versions.
Moderna is easily available now. But anyway, let's move on. We want to move on to motorsport, guys. Let's move on to motorsport.
Okay.
And particularly the Turkish Grand Prix, which was last week. Formula One returned to Turkey, and it wasn't the most exciting race in the world in terms of action, maybe. But boy, oh boy, was it tense with wondering who was going to stay out and who was going to come in, and what were they, when they came in, what tyres were they going to switch to, and Pete, what did you think about it all?
It wasn't that exciting, and the messages between Lando Norris and his team were very, very different from last fortnight. And I think Daniel Ricciardo knew on the Friday how things were going to go, and he was just saying PR stuff. He was sort of saying it's going to be all right, but I think he knew deep down that it wasn't going to go as well as we all expected.
Daniel probably had the problem that he probably pulled the plug a little early in terms of, because he was one of the first to come in and put on the new intermediates, and he lost a bit of time through that. So, but do you think, Pete, that the question is, I mean, Lewis didn't want to come in. The team wanted Lewis to come in. Eventually, Lewis did the right thing and listened to the team, but Lewis was still saying after the race, I could have and should have gone through, and I would have finished in a better position. But look, as we said last regarding Lando, I mean, the team have got all of the data there, and they know how much he was losing to the people behind him. So did the team do the right thing, or should Lewis have stayed out?
I think
he was his own team boss.
I think it's a situation the same with Lando last time. You're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And so I think Lewis was in a better position than what Lando was to perhaps come in and change tyres. But again, I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Can you expand on that a little bit, Pete? Why, though? Like, did you notice why?
I think he was. There was a bigger gap between where he was positioned to the next car.
So they spoke to him and said to him, we want you to come in. So he said, I don't want to come in. Why do you want me to come in? Well, we think you should come in. But if you go on team radio and expand it even more, they would have just gone on and on and on and on, and he just would have said, bugger off, leave me alone, etc. like that. So later on, when they said, we need you, I think 3 times they asked him to box, and he says no, no, and no. So the third time, he says, I'll box now. And then when he did, and when he come back out, and he says, where's my gap? He said, well, you missed your gap because you delayed us 3 times. So that's the damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you've got to explain it a little bit better, because that's the reason why. 3 times they asked him to box. He said no each time. When he finally did, the gap had gone. And when he got on the radio and said, where'd my gap go? Well, you destroyed it, mate, but we're not going to talk for an hour on the radio with you.
No,
they didn't quite say that.
The gap was never there. The gap was never
there.
There
was a little gap there, but it wasn't as good as the one he ended up into.
The real difference between Lewis this time and Lando last time is the team can see weather radar. With Lando, they knew the weather was coming and that would affect one end of the circuit really bad. This time, the team's looking at the radar and they can see it's constant across the area. The conditions weren't going to change. They just expected everybody else to also pit, and this time it didn't work.
I'm talking about the earlier pit, not the one at the end. I'm talking about the first pit where the gap was, not talking about
It's
the west
the one at the end that matters. The one at the
I'm
end is the
talking.
one that matters.
I'm talking about the first pit, which was the one that didn't have the gap, and that's 3 times. That's
But
why.
the one at the end is where he was ignoring the instruction to box.
If he had done the first one, it would have put him in a different position for the one at the end. That's my point. But prevention's better than cure.
Can I say, did you see the rear tyres that came off
Yes.
Hamilton's car? They were shot. If it even would have been struggling to make the next 8 laps without shredding.
No. It still had the
you don't
tread
think
out
so?
to out to the edges. It was just smooth in the middle. As long as he'd kept temperature and that, it would have still pumped the water out
Yeah, but
giving
did
him
you see
more grip as a dry line form.
No, not worry about the grip. I'm worried about whether the tyre didn't hold together until the end of the race.
That depends on the thickness of the rubber.
As happened,
That's
did you
right,
see
exactly.
The man who did go through for the whole race was Esteban Ocon, and did you see he had huge chunks out of that. He was very, very lucky to finish. He had big chunks out of the front right. I don't know. I didn't see the rest of it, but he pushed through, and yeah, good on him. And everyone's saying, yeah, what a great job. But that could have ended in the wall, pretty quickly. And we don't know. I mean, Hamilton was obviously not as harsh on his tyres as Ocon was. They when they came off, they looked. They were bad, but they were still usable. But would they still be usable? Sort of, right at the end of the race, and he's challenging for a championship. Ocon can take the risk because he's got very little to lose. But Hamilton, if he says no, I'm pushing on, and sort of 1 or 2 laps out from the end, a tyre blows and delaminates, then he's in trouble. I mean, I think that. I think that they played it right, but he probably would have been better off coming in a little bit earlier than when he did, and rather than try and push it on. But once again, it's the communications. If the team had been a lot clearer and had have just said, Lewis, we're looking at the numbers. You are going to fall back to 6th or something unless you come in. Then he would have said, okay, I'll come in straight away. But they just sort of said, come in, and then he said no, and they said, okay. No, they should have pushed it. I think they should have pushed it a little bit harder. But anyway, the thing was, I mean, it's he did get up there. It certainly kept the Max Verstappen in second place. Certainly kept his championship hopes well and truly to the forefront. So he's looking in a pretty good position at the moment. Congratulations to Valtteri Bottas. I mean, that may well be the last Formula One Grand Prix he ever wins. So
massive congratulations. He deserves it, doesn't he, Brett? He's been a valiant second. He's done everything that the team's asked him. He's put his best foot forward. He hasn't really gone out. He's put a sarcastic jibe in every now and again, which you would do. You're only human. But the guy has just been a pitcher. He's just done the right thing. So he's all class, in my opinion, and good luck to him for whatever he does, whether in Formula One or anything in the future. He's a hell of a guy. I hope if he drops down to Australia, we hope we can catch up with him and have a chat to him and give him a pat on the back if we're COVID allowed. Good on them, guy.
If they get here, I mean, he'll certainly be here.
Lovely. What did everyone think of the McLaren and Daniel Ricciardo's tanking?
I don't think he tanked.
Yes, they did. Absolutely, they did. What part that you didn't watch?
Hang on. He's had a mistake in qualifying that put him at the back of the pack.
No. Before that.
No. Before qualifying.
Yep. They were tanking.
Okay.
Friday,
who watched free practice 1? Who watched free practice 2?
Me.
And then who watched all the way
I
through?
missed those.
All right. So what did he do in free practice 1?
And he was saying, that doesn't indicate how the car is going.
It wasn't that. No, not that.
Well, what is it, Doc? Because
I watched free practice 1 and free practice 2.
Yeah,
and if you had watched McLaren and Daniel, obviously it was a decision either one made or they did it conjunctionally. if you watch free practice 1, his times were way off. He was down outside the top 10. But did you have a look what tyre he was using? Everyone else was using the soft. He was the only one that used the medium, and that was what his time was on. So you look down the field all the way down, soft, and then finally got the Daniels, had the medium. So he was using the harder compound in the free practice 1. Went to free practice 2, he did exactly the same again. Everyone else was using medium. His one had the hard. So they deliberately went out on those particular tyres for those 2 practice sessions, and that kept his time down nowhere near any of the other his compatriots or competitors, because he wasn't on the same compound tyre and he wasn't couldn't produce the quicker time. And then
that indicates that they're trying to save the soft tyres for later. Yep. If they expected the very end of the race to be dry, they wanted a fresh set of softs.
Exactly. So that's why I watched those 2 practice sessions and I went, oh, look at this. They're saving tyres or etc. like that. And then bang, qualifying and qualifying, and he went bang. They pulled the bloody engine one as well too. I went, look at this. That's 3 bloody hits. You've got to analyse the data and what's going on sometimes, not just go with
their face. They were always going to change that engine as if they were going to have to take the hit sometimes, and because of the fact that he didn't qualify as well, they thought, well, now, and the cars, obviously the McLaren wasn't as well suited to some other circuits. They turned around and said, okay, this will be, it probably makes sense for us to put the new power unit in now for Daniel and let him take the pain now, so that we'll hopefully things will be a bit better.
Exactly.
It was the Americas. So
it was planned all along.
It's just it's common sense.
You've got to read into the data sometimes, not just listen to all the bloody spin and the rhetoric and all that going on. You've got to watch the stuff yourself and and look at the data and check out what they're doing. And you can actually see what their plans are sometimes without them actually telling you. It's so obvious. But anyway.
They do quite often run Daniel on mediums and hards in the practice sessions, in practice 1 and practice 2 quite often.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that would depend on whether that might be his. I suppose you'd have to talk to Daniel and sort of say what's the reason for that, because they're obviously, I mean, the thing about having two cars and 2 teams is the fact that two different cars is the fact that you can play around, you can run one setup on one car and one setup on another. So then they're probably saying, look, at the moment, Landau's the number 1 driver. He's the quickest driver. We're going to put we're going to get him to do the run the quickest times and to put him on see what we can do for qualifying and set him up for that and get the car set up for qualifying, and we'll set Daniel's car up more for the race, and we'll get some feedback so that we can make the changes to Landau's car as well later. I mean, so they're running, I mean, if you've got 2 cars, there's no point running them absolutely identically until you get to the race.
The slow car on the racing line popped up again, unfortunately.
Yeah, slow stopped.
Oh, man, you saw the footage too, did you, Richie?
Oh yeah. Oh. The bit, you could watch the wheels turning. They were just going so slowly.
Someone's going to lose more than the rear diffuser soon, I reckon. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be on for young and old in the press conference. I reckon it'll be punch-ons.
Someone's going to take a corner off their car if they don't watch it.
Yeah, no one will probably get hurt hopefully, someone in the crowd will get some lovely carbon fiber debris as a souvenir to take home. Congratulations to that person when they do whatever country you're living in. I don't know. Maybe they should look. The technology is there. The only thing I can think of that's probably, I don't know if I'm not FII approved or executive or anything like that. GPS are on all the cars for different reasons, whatever it is. All they can do is have a bloody little red light or a bloody a signal in their helmet with a sound beep, beep, beep. If you've got this beeping noise going off in front of you or this light flashing in front of you, there's a car really, really close to you. And you have that maybe up until the race. And in race, you go back to having it non-existent. But in a qualifying or in free practice sessions, when people are on the racing line and going slow, or if they go under a certain kilometre of an hour, under a certain speed, that they get a fine or a penalty or a point or something like that taken off them because it could cause an accident.
I vote that instead of a buzzer, we have Aussie Man reviews telling him to get faster, yeah. And then a whole
I
string
have
of
a better one.
Australianisms.
I've got a better one, Doc.
All right.
You know that jackrabbit that ran across the track at Monza? Well, how about you have the same jackrabbit rush past them as they're trying to qualify? Maybe that'll embarrass them into going quicker.
I think the term Doc used at one stage though, when it was if people are on the racing line. The fact is, people should not be on the racing line. You're going slow, you get off the racing line. So you get across the line, you slow down, you stay there, and you look in your mirror. And also, your team should be telling you. I mean, it should be like, and I'm surprised that they don't use it more. I know it's very much a NASCAR thing, an American thing, but they do use it in other forms of racing as well, like IndyCars, is to have, you can have a spotter. There are a couple of spotters around the place who can just say, Fernando is coming up on you quickly, keep out of the road, or you've got a faster car, you've got faster cars, or keep to the left, keep to the right, whatever, to keep people out of the keep people off of the racing line. But that's the point. When you've stopped doing your lap, get the hell off of the racing line and stay off the racing line. Don't wallow all over the track. And of course, it's as sort of was inferred there by Virtual R. That's Mazepin is a serial offender of it, and they need to have a serious word with him and say, okay, look, I know you're new here, and I know no daddy's got lots of money, but if you don't keep out of the way. It's a bit like like if the FIA and the stewards aren't going to do anything, it's up to the senior drivers, people like Dan and Fernando and all those people to go and have a quiet word with Mr. Mazepin and say, we're telling you for your own good,
get the hell out of
the road.
Yeah. Because it always makes the highlights reel on Sky Sports, and more than 50% of the time you always go beep. So it makes the bleep rule, but they're swearing their head off, and you can understandably so, because when they're coming around a corner, sometimes maybe it might even be a blind turn. They're doing 200 plus at times.
That's where the flaggies have got to do their job, and that's where the teams have got to do their job to say, to let people know who's around there.
Maybe all these things, the spotters would be a good idea, I think, Brett, and maybe some sort of warning system as well too, whether it be audio or visual, that it wouldn't hurt. And then switch it off for the race, obviously, because they're all going gung ho. It's only going to be an unwanted distraction. So, but they need to, and put some penalties on it, not just these slap on the wrists that they get from time to time.
I don't think anything will happen, any change will happen until something disastrous happens.
Yeah, and that's going to be the problem, isn't it? It's like
and that'll bring the whole sport into disrepute.
Yeah, and speaking of which, in terms of when things go wrong, I mean, often when there are tragedies and when there are major incidents, things are done to the lessons are learned, and we saw over the weekend at Turkey as well, the FIA have tested some new fireproof gloves, some improved designs in the wake of Romain Grosjean's frightening crash last year, and a couple of drivers, including Daniel Ricciardo, tried these new improved gloves to make sure they were still they felt good and all that. Daniel gave them the thumbs up, flying colours. He said they were no problem at all. He said you wouldn't know the difference to drive in them, and he's given them the thumbs up. And the point is, at the moment they're saying, well, okay, these are going to be mandatory and they will come in for Formula One, but that's going to flow down once again to everybody in the sport, including people like Richard and anybody else, and Dave.
I just bought a new set of gloves.
Yeah, guess what?
Oh, shit.
They're a spare set now.
Yeah, like shockers. The springs,
you can use them to drive to church on Sundays now instead.
Yeah. I can put the shockers and springs in my road car too.
Yes, well, that's it. That's as Andrew was pointing out there. I mean, Formula One needs 20 cars on the grid for contractual reasons for the TV. That is in their contract. They do have to supply a minimum 20 car grid. And as they say, his old man funds Haas and so he can't afford to lose them. So. But at the same time, we know that I think it's I've got it scrolling around the bottom. We know that there are people still out there who want to get into Formula One and who can't get in at the moment. So there might be the opportunity. I mean, okay, if they lose, if your push come to shove and they lost Mazepin, well, then there's Guan Yu Zhao is waiting there with lots of Chinese millions as well. Michael Andretti is, as we see on the bottom in the ticker, is going to be in talks once again. Once everybody gets to the United States, Michael Andretti is going to have more talks with Alfa Romeo and Sauber to talk about either some sort of either a buyout or a major involvement. Which also opens up the possibility, being widely talked about, that if Michael Andretti does get control of that team and get in there, that there could be a possible spot at some stage for young Colton Herta, the American driver, son of Brian Herta. And it's interesting, really interesting. So if you go to racer.com and the magazine there, Marshall Pruitt, a senior and very respected journalist in the United States, was basically saying, Colton, please don't go. Don't, you've got your whole future in front of you, and Formula One is not the place for young American drivers. And I sort of disagree with him for that, but he's a very talented young guy. He's only in his early 20s. And it would be really good to see a young American talent there. Although they've got Sargent in Formula 2 at the moment, so let's see how that goes. But it would be interesting to see if he goes through.
The new great philosopher Seb Vett came out and made a comment today. It's funny how he's morally coming out on all these issues these days of making some comment or someone's getting a grab off him, and he said it should be based on talent, not money again. So, I mean, he's older and wiser and things, he did it to a certain extent, he did it the hard way when he was younger. He got there on talent and the backing, but he's come out today and made a comment that morally, and look, the world we live in, top of the peak of the thing, it's going to happen. There's people going to come in there, and as I've always said in sport, money talks and BS walks. So what do
Yeah, just quickly for our podcast people, Paul Van Der Acker is pointing out the gloves have always been the weak link in fire safety because they can only be so thick. They can only be so thick before they become unfunctional. So because we've seen drag racing, they've got those very, very thick, but they're only on the track for like 4 or 5 seconds and pretty much going in a straight line. So they don't need that dexterity that you need in circuit racing. So they can be a lot thicker. But it's good to know that whatever they've done with these new gloves, it'll be interesting to have a look at the technology.
Well, I mean, you can only go. You're the Excelsior in the cast tonight here, Richard. How much do you go on feel through your fingers on the steering wheel?
Oh, a hell of a lot. And your hands can get pretty hot on a hot day. In fact, I find myself, I've got a water bottle. I'm spraying water into my hands and cooling them while you're sitting on the dummy grid with the fan because the hands get really hot.
That's on the Phillip Island, a 15-degree day.
Yeah, I was thinking more Winton when it's 35 outside and the car sinks into the asphalt in the sun.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're not even doing a burnout. I know.
Yeah, that's right.
We've seen that the next round, of course, of Formula One is at the Circuit of the Americas. It's a really good looking circuit. I think I really like Circuit of the Americas to have a look at. But after the recent MotoGP, there were lots of criticism from the riders about the state of the circuit. And it's interesting today, Circuit of the Americas management have said that they are addressing the problems of bumps before the US Grand Prix. Apparently, the problem there is it was sort of a lot of it's reclaimed land and all the rest of it. So it's a bit like sort of the Calder Park scenario that it's things are settling down underneath them, so the track is breaking up a bit, and there are some problems. And also, they've apparently had lots of floods and heavy rain in the area over the past year or so, which has caused those problems. But they are addressing that, so we will see the Formula One cars will hopefully have a better.
Was Calder Park ever an old tip?
Just as a footnote to that,
Golden Park is an old tip.
All right.
yeah, well, just
Especially
as a
the
foot,
Thunderdome.
as a footnote to that, Coda are still investigating it as of this week. It's still under investigation, Brett, without going to any finer details.
Yeah, well, they haven't answered. They have said that they are going to. They're certainly going to do something. They acknowledge the fact that there were there are some inherent issues with the circuit, and I think it's just a fact of they probably don't want to spend. I think they're concerned about they don't want to be spending too much money there because there's still some uncertainty, and they might be using this as well as a bit of a leverage in terms of future negotiations with F1 as well, because they don't want to be going out and spending huge amounts of money on that circuit, and then Formula One turns around and says, "No, we're not."
Well, there's a circuit. There's a circuit
Come on,
Mongolia
mate.
that could be used, couldn't it? That's been built in 2010, couldn't it be, Brett?
Yeah, that's it. We could go to the Mongolian.
Never got
it was
used.
it was certainly being talked about when we were there, like back in 2012 or 14, wherever it was that we were there. It was certainly being talked about that was the long-term plan, because we were saying, like, why? I mean, why build this incredible circuit in the middle of nowhere? And they said, oh, well, like one day the plan is, at the moment it's only level 2 accredited, but at some stage in the future we're looking to modify it and bring it up to full Formula One standards for a Mongolian Grand Prix. And of course, that obviously never happened. I'm not sure what the state of the track is at the moment. It hasn't been used. I think it's been used a couple of times since we were there, but I think it was used a year after for the same corresponding meeting. And after that, it's basically being used for drive days for some of the local businessmen who are in the mines and people who fly in for the weekend and have a bit of a spin. But I don't think it gets used. I don't think it's even used for things like the Chinese Touring Car Championship or the Asian. Certainly not for the Asian GT series or anything else.
It was a great program last week, so I'm not sure if you've got it up on YouTube yet or not, Brett, but get in and watch the Mongolian Special Edition Retro in pit lane from last week, because I watched, as I said, the following day. It was absolutely brilliant, and the insight you gave at the time. And just as a little update on the activities of the city, it is up to 2.5 million people. You did say the capacity was 25 million. Still on the 1/10, so hopefully they've still got the fireworks still going in there, and your Pink Floyd feature wall.
Well, I saw a story just the other day about the comeback of there. Now it was very much a Chinese propaganda site, so it did put the thing. But that the Pink Floyd, so that is now bigger than ever. The whole place, they did a flyover there, and all of those buildings, the whole city was a light show. I mean, obviously they did it for that particular night, but it looked amazing. So, look, I mean, it's not as easy to say, hey, just pop over to Inner Mongolia. But look, I think it'd be one of as I said, I'd love to go back there again.
Oh, well, Brett, I'll join you, because I've got a lot of long service leave sitting there from work, and I need an excuse to have a holiday too, because the thing is, if we go over and do it and make a holiday, but we'll get separate places. We've got half a city you can have a day out at each. You don't have to necessarily stay in the same area. But the thing is, though, too, I am yelling out to Audi right now, since they're making and about to release the last generation of their R8 Audis now. Maybe they could have a race over there again in Mongolia, and we can do it all over there again and have a feature triathlon series.
It would be good. Interesting, just seeing running down the bottom of the thing, Michael Massey, the clerk, of course, for Formula One, the Australian official, has hit back at Fernando Alonso. Fernando made a number of claims, basically saying that Formula One drivers were not being treated equally, and alleging that there were certain drivers were being favoured, and in particular certain British drivers. And of course, Michael Massey has come out and said that that's absolute nonsense. But for Fernando to say that, as I've said before, I've got a lot of time for Fernando. He's an experienced campaigner. And Peter, you follow. I mean, what's he sort of saying? I mean, he did come up with a number of specific instances where he said, here's basically two identical infringements,
Yes.
and they were two totally different totally different
penalties.
penalties.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, in last week, he did something in qualifying. In practice, and was hauled, or was it qualifying? I think it was qualifying, and he was hauled before the stewards, but they didn't give him a penalty for that. They just gave him a warning. He's sort of alleging that it depends on what nationality you come from, and as to what penalty you get, and things like in Russia he was driving. He worked out on the warm up lap that he could drive on the outer edge of the circuit and gain places, and he was saying that other times if he's done that, he's called into questions, and other drivers haven't been called into question.
Putting the stewards part aside, though, I think two comments need to be made that for the listeners and viewers. And thank you, Box, for just going back in retrospect to the steering wheel and the feel of the fire gloves. I'm sure they'll do their research before they implement it right through from top to bottom. But with Alonso, two things need to be mentioned. One is, I'm an idiot. And I quote him on that. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. And two, I'm just going to cut through like they did.
Yeah, well, I think that it's a very serious allegation, though, from Fernando. So it's interesting to see. And Mike Massey, Mike Massey, it's very much sort of mixed reviews from some people. I mean, Charlie Whiting was so obviously well respected from everybody from his years, and obviously big shoes to fill. And I think Michael Massey has done a pretty good job. I think he's certainly opened up communication a lot more. He's been far more open with the media and in turn far more transparent in explaining and decisions and coming into the media and having his say. But obviously a very high stress job and very difficult for him to do. But I don't know. I think he's done a reasonable job. But it'll be interesting to see at the end of the year whether he continues in that place. I mean, as we've said before, I know Dave Stillwell's mentioned it a number of times. I've mentioned it as well. If you want the template for a really, really good race director, Eduardo Freitas from the WEC is just marvelous. He's very calm. He sticks by the rules, but he is very flexible. And his comment is always, we want this race to happen. Let's all be sensible. Listen to me. Calm down for a second. We're going to get this race done. Let's go racing again. He's great to listen to. He really is.
I think in the race, Fernando collided with Gasly, and there was a second one. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was interesting that Gasly was given a penalty, and then Fernando was given a penalty for the second one. So I think there was a bit of even Steven going on there.
Yeah, that's it. Mark is pointing out, of course, we've got coming up this weekend. This is at Donington Park, GB3, formerly the British Formula 3 Championship. 3 young Aussies driving this weekend. They've been very competitive up at the top of the field and that as well. And I think those races are live streamed as well on their YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that for as they're calling it GB3 now. That's coming up.
And
up
Brett,
week.
you had a link up for some racing on the weekend just gone, wasn't it there?
Yeah, we had the Peters Auto had the Estoril Classic, the historic.
That's right.
And I was in heaven. The touring car race, and this is if you were watching the Turkish Grand Prix and you were saying what on earth has happened to Martin Brundle in commentary? Well, we can tell you, he's got his priorities straight. He was at Estoril racing for Zach Brown.
Had a steering wheel in front of him, did he?
He had a steering wheel in front of him, and not only did Martin Brundle prioritise the Estoril Classic over the Turkish Grand Prix, so did Zach Brown. They were both there, and they were running together in the Capri, the Cologne Capri, the same model, and there were. And as I said, I was in heaven because there wasn't one, there wasn't two, there was about 4 or 5
just
RS
for,
Capris, the BMW CSL 3-litre cars that were there as well. There were there were Mark 1 Escorts. It was a fabulous week. Go onto YouTube and have a look at it. I haven't caught up with all of it. There's the Le Mans cars, small fields for the Le Mans cars, but quality. The Silk Cut Jaguar, Porsche.
Geordie would love that.
You just killed the moment, because I was going to ask you, Brett, who won the kicks and giggles fight? Who won, Martin or Zach, or who came in front of each other?
Martin, they unfortunately had trouble. They were starting from the front row, from pole position, and unfortunately had some problems in their Capri and didn't start. They eventually got back into the race. I think it was gearbox problems by the look of it. But they were out of it. So eventually it was another Capri that did. That was going on and leading when I was there. The races, the good thing about them is the races are all really long. They're all about they're all basically an hour long. So you had, in that same field, you also had what we'd call, the Group N cars as well. There were 65, 66 Mustangs, and those sorts of cars as well. And as I said, the Mark 1 Mark 1 Escorts, and fabulous things. So go and have a
we'll do. Two side notes to that whole package you just put together, Brett, is one, the DTMs were also live last weekend. I watched a bit of that. That was great racing as well too. So
Kelvin van der Linde.
Here we go. So all right. I'll come back to the second comment in a second. You go with the DTM wrap up. I watched it. You take the glory. Go for it.
Look, I think, Helmut Marko, I don't often agree with Helmut. Helmut Marko is known for making some, absolutely, ludicrous and over-the-top statements, and we understand that, and, he's... But I do agree with him. Kelvin van der Linde should be taking a holiday from a few races. That was absolutely disgusting what he did with Liam Lawson. And not just with Liam Lawson. I mean, once he had taken Lawson out of contention for the title, he was being passed by those Mercedes, by Max Gotts in the Mercedes, and he basically tried to run them off the track as well. I mean,
Yep.
it wasn't, you couldn't even say, it was an accident. And he now has come out and he has apologised to Liam Lawson, but Lawson, the young New Zealand driver, has basically said he was obviously heartbroken and very angry, and he has said since, he said, I don't care what I don't know what Red Bull have got planned for me in the future, but I do not want to go back to DTM. Please don't send me back there. If that's going to be the way they race, and if that's going to be the way they treat that sort of behaviour, because it was a it was a slap on the wrist. I think it was like a 5-second penalty or some silly thing like that. He deliberately, there's no doubt about it, he deliberately went in there and thought, if I put this guy out of the race and I win the championship, so goodbye Liam, and he just ran him straight off the track. It was
seen that before.
I bet you felt
Michael Schumacher.
I bet you
Damon
felt
Hill.
that before. Yeah, I bet you felt that before, Richard. Just a quick back what Stilly just said about the all race control exact comment should be made. He said it should be in pig Latin, Stilly, pig Latin, not just Latin, pig Latin. So it's even less understandable. Number two as well, though. I totally agree with your wrap up of the DTM. But it was good racing. I was even watching the free practice and the qualifying. That was. I think it's the formula below it in the DTM is also worth a catch up, where it's quite entertaining at times. Just while you were saying about the RS Escorts and the RS Capris a few seconds ago too, Brett, in relation to Australia, Ford have come out this week, and it's a little bit unfortunate, but this is the way life goes sometimes. Ford are only committing to SUVs, commercial vehicles, in other words, your Rangers and your van type stuff, or the high-profile sports versions of cars like the Focus and the Fiestas now. So they're scaling back their range to the commercial vehicles and the SUVs. And if you want something that's only a four-door, it's got to be a sports or a high-profile type car now, that's the way it goes. So, but anyway, yep, we move on. And you're muted, Brett. We digress. You're on mute, Brett.
There we go. Sorry about that. Yes, I mean, that's the way of the world at the moment in terms of the way that everything's going. I mean, even in the United States now, I mean, the focus of both the major car companies over there is based on SUVs and pickups, and the old-fashioned sedan is almost becoming a bit of a dodo, but they've still got the Mustang there. And also, speaking of the Mustangs, the NASCAR Gen 3 car was testing at the Charlotte Roval, and they were showing that live. And once again, congratulations to NASCAR. They do a fabulous job at it. And have a look at their YouTube channel. They've gone into some really good detail, some really intense discussion over the technical specifications of the new cars and what they're finding out about it. Some of it is very funny to listen to because, I mean, it's it's like the good old boys are discovering like revolutionary new technology, like single nut center lock wheels and trans axles and fully independent suspension, and it's just this is all strange and wonderful stuff, but they've given a really good coverage of it, and the cars look good, the cars sound good, and as they said, NASCAR said themselves that they took a lot of inspiration from supercars with that. So it's interesting to note that as they're running the new Gen 3 cars in the United States, and they will be debuting them on the track in the first races of Daytona next year, the same can't be true said for the supercars, because they have now announced today that it's official, and this is the common sense thing to do, but they have now delayed the introduction of the new Gen 3 supercar until 2023. There was a really silly plan, I thought, to sort of introduce them halfway through the championship next year. So
everyone said you get a refund for buying supercars now too. The price dropped. Did you see that? This afternoon?
For the teams and
no, the price, the purchase of it, it came out this afternoon. How much the price dropped? Did you hear?
I didn't hear the figure. No, what was the figure? You got the
figure? $200 million less it went for.
I could have bought that.
I know. I would have chipped in my 1 and 2 cent 1 and 2 cent coin jar. I would have given it to you, Richard, so you could have actually got over the line.
If I'd known it was that cheap, I would have put a bid in.
$200 million less it went for.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I can't wait. If he hasn't commented already, I'm really looking forward to hearing Peter Adderton's comment on this, because he already sort of said, hang on, we put in bids based on what we know, and then suddenly it's like, suddenly we drop out, and it's just like, guess what? The price is going down. It's like, oh, really? Like speaking, as Dave's saying regarding Gen 3, deploy the international not surprised face. I think it's pretty much, I think for Peter Adderton, it's probably the same in terms of the dealings of selling supercars in there. It was pretty obvious from the beginning. I think from the beginning that who was the chosen bidder in that situation. And
I'll tell you who's got some. I'll tell you who's got some power. Tell you who's got some power in supercars as of this week is Mr. Matt Stone. He has got 4 drivers who want a gig next year at the moment. I don't think they're falling over each other or wacky races smashing into each other yet, but there's 4 drivers. There's after it's all unravelled on who's going where and who's basically signed that it hasn't been officially announced yet. There's only 1 seat left in supercars, a bit like the Formula 1 seat that was left, that was speculated in the last couple of weeks. So, good luck to the driver that gets that lucky spot for the supercars spot. And what was the other bit of? There was another bit of info. Oh, Craig Lowndes will be doing a full series of Carrera Cup next year as well, though, too. It's obviously he likes to keep himself fit and healthy and in the driver's seat to do his co-driving roles.
Yeah, I think the other thing for Craig is that he's all. You know, I mean, we've known for a long time. I mean, you know, obviously we go back a long way with Craig, and he's always said, we've spoken a lot of times, both on the show and in private, about his passion to eventually race at both Le Mans and also in the Nürburgring 24-hour. He's really keen to do both of those races. So I think he's well and truly keeping his hand in. Certainly, until the COVID thing happened, he was probably set up to do at least I think he was going to do the N24 last year and possibly Le Mans as well at some stage. But that's what he'll be doing, and he's going to do 3 races. He's going to do all the categories at Bathurst as well.
Bathurst.
So
I don't think anyone's done a Craig Lowndes special for a while, even though it was the poor guy was just about the media getting media on his doorstep every week. But I won't mention the suburb he lives in, the northern suburbs of the outskirts of Melbourne. But I think that Cortina is still sitting in his garage over there, and I wouldn't mind having a look at what else has got here. So I might get in touch with him one day soon on the way to my parents up north and call in and see Mr. Lowndes and say hello, because I used to know his dad years ago, and his dad worked on one of my cars there for about 25 years ago, and I wouldn't mind. I wish Frank all the best. He did a lot in Formula One and a lot in Australian motorsport for a long time before he retired, Frank. So it's a bit good.
Yeah, very much behind the scenes as an engineer and car preparer.
Just a quick question though, too, related to supercars, and what Box said in his lower third there back a little bit ago about the glove feel. Richard, have you got any roll bars or lots of knobs that you have to play with when you're in the XL?
Careful.
When I'm in the Excel.
That's all right. Anti-roll bar. That's all right. Just checking.
I wear gloves so there's no fingerprints. Basically,
You don't have to. You don't have any knobs to play with as well, though, too. Or?
There's a few switches I like to play with, but
that's all right. Okay, that's okay.
knobs.
You flick a couple of
I
switches.
think we can agree there is no shortage of knobs in local motorsport. So.
But Richard just sticks to flicking switches. He flicks the switch.
Flick switches. Well, he's not as young as he used to be. I know that.
Let's just not say anything about flicking buttons.
That's it.
That was a text message I got from.
True.
That was a text message I got from Amanda H. I think from The Simpsons. Amanda Hug and Kiss. I think it was. Yeah.
As Dave's pointing out, Richard's got one knob to worry about in the race car, but another 40 on the track at the same time. So
couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
Excel competitors, please contact Mr. D. Stillwell. Written, spoken, and authorised. But anyway, look, we're coming to the end of our time now. Doc, any MotoGP news? A little bit around.
Just a little bit. There was a little bit of Bagnaia, but I think I don't want to go into because it's not a race week for us, but that you can touch on probably the official words. But I did read a little bit of an interview from Valentino Rossi this week, and it was sad and reminiscent in one sense. So he said he's going to be a little bit nervous and a little bit scared about racing in the last Grand Prix he's going to be participating in soon. And the other one was, quote, "I'm not ready to retire." He said people have been calling me to retire and sending me messages and telling me to retire for 15 years. And he said, I have given them absolutely diddly squat, paid no attention to him. He said, I'm a little bit apprehensive. I can't even remember the exact words. He's apprehensive, a little bit scared. He's like, I don't think he's worried about crashing or getting hurt or anything like that. I think it's the end of his career is imminent, and he's a little bit apprehensive. Poor guy. So yeah, I think he'll be pretty emotional. It's going to be a massive celebration for the guy.
He clearly loves it. I mean, he loves it. But the good thing is that he and it's the same with most motorcycle guys. I mean, they do have that option of transferring to the cars if they feel that sort of that need for competition and that need for speed to continue. And we know Valentino's a good steerer in rallying. We know that he's already put his hand up for GT racing with Ferrari next year, and there is of course hypercar just around the corner. As I said, if he turns out to be really, really good on four wheels, as half as good as he is on two wheels, Valentino Rossi in a Ferrari hypercar on the grid at Le Mans in 2023, 2024. Boy, that you won't be able to move in that place. I mean, it's talk about. They normally get around 200,000 for the race for the 24-hour race. God knows how many will pack into the place. If Ferrari is there with, and then Alpine with possibly Fernando Alonso behind the wheel of the Alpine as well. There's some exciting stuff.
I've touched on this before, but you know what he's going to be absolutely brilliant at, and probably almost as good as a rider as he was, as probably the best rider that's ever gone down. You know what he's actually going to be brilliant at? A team owner and team manager, because what little time he has had to do with these two Moto2 teams and his side projects and everything he does, and the encouragement he gives, and the time and effort and everything he does. Wait till he actually has a little bit more time up his sleeve to be able to devote it that, other than the good girl and the young baby that's on the way. Once he gives that, he is going to be a brilliant team owner and team manager for the people in the future, because the people that he's fostered that have now made up, because he's been around that long, that are the 3 or 4 riders that are actually in MotoGP now, and absolutely, when they devote and absolutely drop at his knees and praise the man and say, I would not be in MotoGP now if Valentino Rossi hadn't got behind me or fostered me or encouraged me, or the VR46 program didn't exist. So it's great.
I think the thing is, because you got to remember, I mean, he had all those years with Jeremy Burgess, and he was, he would have learnt so much over the years from him. I mean, he was obviously a very good hand in bringing through young talent and bringing through and working with and taking Valentino to a lot of his success over the years. So yeah, I think he will be. He's a great communicator. He'll still be a terrific ambassador for the sport. He's just so good with the media and just so friendly. So yeah, I mean, he won't be lost to the sport, and obviously he'll be a bit sad about having his last race, but I think it is well and truly time for him to step off the 2 wheels and move on to the next chapter of his life, especially in terms of what's happening in his personal life with as a dad and all the rest of it. He's got he's got a lot of things on his plate over the next few years. So good luck to Valentino, and we'll obviously talk about that as the race comes, as that last race comes through. Hey, I think that's probably all the time we got now, guys. We've come up to the hour now, so
I've got a little bit of scoop news you might want.
Oh, yes, we always like scoop news.
You know the Cadillac LMP1, which Roddy
yes, with Geordie's got, yes,
brought into the country. He has had I believe, an offer for it. So I know he's very passionate about his racing, but he's even more passionate about his business. So whether he'll actually keep that is still up in the air. And of course, we don't know what somebody else might do with it.
Wasn't after all the showcasing, the engine of England, the UK, then come back again, and then the showcasing from Phillip Island next year and like that. Wasn't he also saying that he was going to take it to America after that in about 12 months anyway?
Yes, he'd be probably, and meant everything he said, but when somebody perhaps wants it more than he does, he kind of says, this is a business, so
I haven't heard any of this.
The other thing Geordie would be thinking about is what other cars could he buy with that money that might be faster than the Cadillac.
Of course.
Just throwing it out there, the guy's surname wouldn't it be a European animal that was introduced back a couple of 100 years ago, would it?
There could be, but I'm not. They haven't gone that far in naming. They never do.
Because I saw a truck on the road pull into the depot, and then I unloaded it with a forklift in the last couple of days, and it had Fox 122 on it. So I was just wondering if it, was.
The other local candidate amongst a few of them is a guy who might be looking to play it in his own backyard, and his own backyard has 7 kilometres worth of international standard circuit in South Australia.
It had crossed my mind, but no names had been mentioned.
That'd be beautiful around that track.
I'm going to come from way left field on this, but the guy who's had an interest in it is always, there is a guy called, he's had a lot to do with Autobahn and other car-related shops would be a Paul Dumbrell. He would be. I wonder if he's thrown his hat into the ring on that one as well too. He has a couple of dollars up his sleeve.
I don't think Paul is. I don't see Paul as being that sort of investor. I think Paul's pretty clever with his money, and I just think he hasn't shown any great interest in doing anything like any historic racing or anything like that. I think he's very much focused on his various business interests at the moment, because apart from, I'm not sure that he's actually still got anything to do with Super 2. I thought he actually had sold some of that, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know he's got other business interests. I know he was I think he had an interest in Boost and the juice company and a few things. So. Yeah, I don't know whether he's in that sort of market, but certainly Sam Shaheen and as you say, Lindsay. The problem is if Lindsay gets hold of
and maybe
we'll see it again. So
Bowden's as well though too. You can't. They were scaling down a little while ago. You never know. They might scale up again.
They have definitely scaled. That's where you see there, and also the David Waller's put a lot of his cars up for sale. There's a lot of cars up for sale at the moment, and not just historic cars. Unfortunately, this situation has caused a lot of people to sort of reevaluate whether they're how they're spending their time and their money. And there's quite a lot of cars up for sale at the moment from a lot of drivers who are just saying, like, "Oh, look, I've got out of the habit now, and I'm sort of, I like the fact that I've got my weekends back, and I like the fact that I've actually got money in my pocket for a change. So I might give it a bit of a break for a while." So there's quite a few cars up for sale.
Just before you do the twirly thing, Brett, where we wind it up, I just want to quickly mention.
I haven't done the twirly thing for years. My back is absolutely screwed.
And that's 1-1 for the night, Richard. You can fix him off. You can anyway. So yeah, and now everyone's getting involved, and obviously.
Actually, that's Peter's job now. Anyway,
Peter usually does it behind the scenes, where you don't see him do the twirly thing, but you do it on camera now too, Stuart. Just quickly, I did see through my feed come up this week as well, though too. We haven't touched on drag racing much lately, but it is local, it is happening. So Heathcote Park Raceway have revised their calendar. So if you want to get to the drags for this summer, there is a drags to go to. Lance Warren was on our show back early this year, and it was great for him.
Actually, in the studio, he was probably, I think it was the second last. I think there was him and Warren Reed were the only two guests that we've had in the studio this year.
And it was a massive effort for him to come up from Bendigo, because he'd been working all day. He works till the hours burn the candle, and I think he wasn't going to get home till about 12 o'clock that night. So thank you to Lance and any other guests that we have had this year to do shows. But yeah. Have a look at the revised calendar at Heathcote Park Raceway on the website or
they've pretty much
media.
Got something happening every single weekend. They're really getting a lot of use out of that, and it really shows the pent-up demand that is there. And it was just, if we could keep our fingers crossed for Calder to sort of reopen again at some stage.
Good luck, Peter.
So hopefully we're still obviously waiting for confirmation on that once all of this is moved aside, and we'll have some idea then. But certainly the plans are that action will be back at Calder fairly soon. But it certainly does show that yes, there is massive pent up demand for regular drag racing at both Heathcote Park and other venues, including Calder around Victoria and around Australia. As Wally Biscuits is saying, hello Wally Biscuits, to Mr. and Mrs. Biscuit or son Wally. Only trouble with having your weekends back, you find yourself pulling weeds up and then planting them back in the ground again the next day. I don't have to. I don't even bother pulling the weeds up, because I don't have to replant them again, because they just come up. It's the only thing in my garden that grows absolutely brilliantly. If weeds, don't have a problem with. Anything else, I kill in 5 seconds. Okay, everybody, I think that's it. Let's call it a day there, and we have other things to do and other fish to fry. And in my case, I've got kangaroo steak waiting for dinner. So okay, Yeah, so we will see you
night.
next week on the program. Now, next week on In Pit Lane, Thursday night, 9 o'clock on Channel 31. Our special guest will be Macaulay Jones. I think we mentioned he was going to be on last week. Couldn't quite happen that, but I have spoken with Macaulay. We've done the interview, and so he will be on the show next week. And really nice young guy too. I hadn't really met sort of Macaulay as well, or interviewed him before. A really nice young guy, and very upfront with what's happening with his team and with his plans for next year.
That'd be
So,
juicy because he hasn't officially signed yet, has he, Brett?
He has not officially signed. No, he hasn't. No, he has not officially signed at all. So if
that'd
you
be
want to find
juicy
out,
news.
if you want to find out what he might be doing next year and what his plans are for next year, and in fact for the years ahead, be watching. I'm sure it will be announced all very soon. But even if not, just make sure you watch next week because, as I said, really nice young guy, very much as you would expect with. With the family up there, they're great contributors to motorsport. And Macaulay was terrific. It came together very quickly. You'll notice I look even rougher than normal because it was literally a case of I had just come back after a sort of after a 9-kilometre walk and just hadn't had a shower, hadn't done anything. You got there, it's like, hey mate, sorry, but if you jump on now, we can do this right now. So it was like, I don't have time for a shower. I don't have time for. I threw on a shirt and I just hit record.
Oh, you smell! You can still smell you from here.
Yeah, it's good. It's good as well. Just as well as not smell-o-vision. That's for sure.
That's all right. Have a great week, everybody. Have a great week.
And good luck Chris and Faye, and good luck and anybody who's suffering out there. Good luck to all of you. As everybody's sort of saying there. Dave Stillwell is saying good night as well. Russell is saying good night. Box is saying good night. Paul is saying everybody, and we're saying good night. See you next week. That's all for Full Course Yellow. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.